award-winning soft rock show with Jeff Dorsett and Adrian Collis.
This is the Soft Rock Show, and this is some of our Rock Bites.
Whole lot of rock. Rock Bites. Latest rock news.
We were fortunate that the great Andy Fraser, bassist and songwriter for the terrific band Free, visited our Soft Rock Show studios.
And what a pleasure Andy was to manage. He came into the studio with his protege, young Toby. The first thing we did was ask him about his influences and how he did his own songwriting.
Oh, I have so many influences, starting with Muddy Waters and B.B. King, Albert King, Freddie King, and in the soul area, you've got the Staple Singers and Aretha Franklin and Wilson Pickett. I mean, I loved them all. There's no better songwriters than the Beatles, and the Stones went through an incredibly productive period. Even the Who. I was still at school when I heard My Generation, and wow, they have got a bass solo after the first chorus. I thought, wow, I like breaking the rules like that.
Plus, of course, he played live in the studio with young Toby and a really interesting version of All Right Now.
We had no idea that Andy was going to do an unrehearsed live session adapted especially for us on the Soft Rock Show.
So here he is, Andy Fraser, with young Toby playing All Right Now acoustic in the studio live.
Here we are, Express, FM radio, Andy Fraser, Toby, feeling good to go, you and me. Jeff makes three, rocking like the Royal Jubilee. Hope you can come the Isle away, 'cause me and Toby gonna do you right. Express 93.7, yeah. Toby on guitar, send you off to heaven singing.
So all right now, baby, it's all right.
You're listening to the Soft Rock Show with Jeff and Aid, and this is our best bites of some of the great interviews we've done and the radio gold we've had. This one in particular I recall when I asked the great New Yorker Willie Nile, the guitarist and singer, about the night he had in a recording studio with John Lennon the night before he died.
When I was making my second album for Everest record in New York City, John and Yoko we were at the record plant. They were in Studio C, we were in Studio A. I was going to meet him on Tuesday. My co-producer was a good friend of John's and had worked with him in the past. Sunday night we're in the studio recording, and we get a phone call from the engineers in John's session saying John's out of guitar strings. Does anybody have guitar strings? So we all went diving in our bags. John Lennon needs guitar strings? Got it. Him and Yoko walked out the door, and he was shot, within minutes. The bodyguard told me the next day, John came up to him when they were coming down in the elevator. He said, let's celebrate. This is a great day. He was in a great mood because Yoko was getting respect at number one record, and he was excited about walking on thin ice. So the last autograph was made out to the guy who gave him the guitar strings, and the strings, I'd give anything to change that, but God bless John Lennon.
Whole lot of rock. Rock Bites.
Being a part of the Brian Epstein stable of stars, Billy J. Kramer spent lots of his time on the road with the Beatles. John and Paul, of course, wrote many of his biggest hits, and there were occasions when rough copies of songs were being written on the tour bus, and then they were considering who might record them or whether to keep them for themselves.
He met at the Aintree Institute with the Beatles. They wrote 7 songs, I believe, for him. He once asked John Lennon if he could have I Want to Hold Your Hand, and he said, no, I'll keep it for ourselves. Billy J. Kramer, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to speak to you.
First up, did you ask for I Want to Hold Your Hand?
Yes, I did. It was actually when John Lennon played me the song Bad to Me, and then he said, I want to run a song by you. Tell me, give me your opinion. And it was, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I said, can I have that one? He said, no, we're doing that one ourselves.
And what about Yesterday? Now, I sort of heard somewhere that it was round the time of maybe Little Children or Trains and Boats and Planes, you had an opportunity, but maybe it passed you by and you went for something else instead. Now, is that true or not?
It's absolutely true, at the time, I wanted something with more edge and more of like a rock and roll type of song.
Whole lot of rock. Rock Bites. Latest rock news.
Soft Rock Show was delighted to be invited to present the radio programme at the South's largest venue, the Portsmouth Guildhall. Adrian and I invited Spike Edney, the keyboard player for Queen since 1984, as our special guest.
And what a tremendous evening that was with Spike. We had a Q&A session with a live audience and great live music from a local band. Spike also explained how he got the job with Queen in the first place, whilst playing house piano at the great Peter Stringfellow's Club in London.
Now, tell us how you got the call to join Queen.
I had a regular gig playing the piano in a club called Stringfellow. I was in there one night, and this guy came up and said to me, "How long are you playing here? I mean, when do you finish?" I said, "Well, I can finish any time." He said, "Oh, Queen need a keyboard player. Do you want the job?" And I went, "Yeah, of course I do." And of course it doesn't happen like that whatsoever. He said, "Well, I'll see you again in 6 months and we'll fix it up." 6 months later, he walked in and said, "Okay, are you ready?" I went, "Ready for what?" He said, "Well, you better come over and have a chat." So I went across to their office and I walked in, quite a big Georgian townhouse, knocked on the door, and I was expecting the 200 people sat there. I walked upstairs and there was a man called Jerry Stickles, who was their tour manager. He said to me, "Right, have you got a passport?" I said, "Yep, show it to me." "Okay, can you be away for 8 to 10 months? I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got the job, you're in." And he said, "Right, next Monday, you're going to fly out to Munich and start rehearsing." And I said, "But I haven't met anybody. You know, supposing I get out there and they don't like me." He said, "Well, then on Tuesday, you'll fly back."
Whole lot of rock. Rock forward, roll backward.
Another of our very special guests on the show was Suzi Quatro, nicknamed Lady Leather due to her part in the TV series Happy Days.
Susie's response to the label Elektra's suggestion that they would make her the next Janis Joplin is just a classic.
It was all happened within 1 week. Elektra Records came to see the band, and they offered me a solo contract. Mickey Most came the same week, saw the band, and offered me a solo contract. So I had the choice to either stay in New York and become, according to Elektra, the next Janis Joplin, or go to England with Mickey and become the first Suzi Quatro. So guess what I did?
Of course, you want to be the first Suzi Quatro.
Sure, I didn't want to be the second anybody.
Over the years, the Soft Rock Show has won 4 awards and done nearly 2,000 interviews and sessions. These included sessions of many new artists on the music scene, which we then championed.
Award-winning Soft Rock Show with Jeff Dorsett and Adrian Collis.